This is Thursday, the 24th of February 2022, and I'm very fortunate to have with me tonight Sammy Samuels, who lives in Yangon and whose family, as his name implies, is Jewish, and he's been very much part of the Jewish scene as his father and grandfather have been in the country. So to start, Sammy, just tell us a little bit about your own life and what you've been doing.
Thank you very much, Peter, for having me here today. And my name is Sammy Samuels. So I'm born and grew up in Rangoon, Burma. And I went to school here. And after that, I went to Israel for study. And when I came back that time, as you probably know, the university in Burma were closed for quite a long time because of the what happened in 1988. So then I was planning to study in the United States. I was accepted. And so I was in the US for almost 12 years. So after I finished my study, then I was working for the American Jewish Congress for quite a while. Then in 2015, around 2014, then I came back hoping to, rebuild business and then also connection in Burma. So since then, I've been living most of my time here in Rangoon, but back and forth to US as well.
And I note that your dad must have passed away not long after you got back from the US. Is that right?
Yes. So he is also the reason that I came back here. So I was living there for quite a long time, but my father passed away in 2015. So it really put me in the position to be back to Rangoon and then also to take care of the community. And also that time, things were changing and the country was really moving forward that time. And so I thought that would be a great opportunity as well for the build family. And then, so he is the reason after he passed away that it made me to come back to Burma.
Right. And as I started at the very beginning, I mean, your family is almost synonymous with the Jewish presence in Myanmar or in Burma. So perhaps you can take us back, Sammy, to when the first Jews came to Myanmar and the development since then.
Thank you. Yeah. So right now, the Jewish community in Myanmar, it's a very, very small community, only very handful of people here. But we have a very beautiful synagogue right in a downtown 26th Street. 3-story building. So by looking at that, you could see that it used to be a very, very big community. We used to have about 3,000 Jews living mainly in Rangoon. And it's all started in mid-19th century. Gabirol Solomon, he came to Burma. And that time it was King Alaungpaya. And by looking at the history, that he was working for the king for some of the matter. So then he came to Rangoon, and after that, more and more Jews from Iraq came via India, because that time they were doing a trading from Burma to India and India to Middle East. They were exporting rice, teak wood, the things that have in Burma through India and to from there to Middle East. So business grew and more came. So before the mid-19th century, we had about 3,000 Jews, and we had the kosher restaurant in Rangoon. We have a Jewish cemetery, and interestingly, there's some name. We have a street name called Judah Ezekiel Street in downtown Rangoon. Now it's called Taimpu Street, but used to call Judah Ezekiel Street. So it was named after the famous Jew, and he was living in that street. He donated even endowment after he passed away for that street for the municipal. So that street was named after him. And we had the Jewish mayor in 1905. So you can imagine it was a wonderful community, and it's a very vibrant. They get along together with all other community. So, but then in 1942, when the Japanese came, there was a little bit of issue. It was not about religious issue or anything like that. It was more on the political issue, because the Jews were very close to the British. So the Japanese thought the Jews were spying for the British. So they came and they closed down the synagogue and they searched around, and they closed down for synagogue for 2 months. and the Jewish community started fearing. And so many Jews started leave the country from Burma to India and to 4 other countries, US, UK, Australia, and the Israel as well. So, but then some came back after Burma got independent in 48. But the life they have under British and after the independence was quite different. But some stick around. In around 48 to 60, there were about, I would say, based on the history, it's about 900 Jews still living in that time from the 48 to 60. Then again, as we all know, in the 62, when the government nationalized all businesses, then they thought there's no chance, there's no hope for the country. And then that time, many left, and slowly now, what we have currently, it's a very, very small, very handful of the community here in Myanmar.
And do you know anything about your grandfather, Isaac Samuels?
Yes. So my great grandfather was the one that came in early century, and then after that, my grandfather also came. My grandfather was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and then and that time, there was a big Jewish community, so he was the part of the community. And then in around 60, he was also the head of the community as the trustee of the synagogue, and then so he's been taking care for quite a long time. Then in 78, he passed away, and then handed over to my father. Has been taking care for over 40 years.
And what business did your father do to survive?
So that time, my father was doing a rental shop. So in 80s, so we had the rental. In these days we would call it like a party rental. So they have furniture, glassware, all kinds of party stuff. So there used to be very few hotels, and in 80s and early 90s. So people do events outside. So they rent, the furniture, glassware from our places. So
for weddings and things like that.
Exactly. So that been doing quite well, till a lot of changes happening in the country with all these hotels are coming up. So that's for over 40, 50 years that almost over 30 years that he's been doing that.
But that business has not continued?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
The time change.
And explain about what you've done, because I think that's very interesting, and hopefully a number of Jewish people who listen from Israel and elsewhere might be interested.
Yeah, so the Jewish community in Myanmar is a very, very small community. So, even instead of just complaining the smallness, we're trying to do what we could do. And I'll give you the example. For example, when I was young, my father and I go around to some small hotel in Rangoon, and we post a poster. Say it was about before the Passover holiday. So we post a poster in those small hotels where tourists and some Israeli might stay. So the poster say, a tree may be alone in the field, a man alone in the wall, but the Jews never alone on his holiday. Join us for the Seder. Seder is the Passover, the meals. So even non-Jew, the tourists saw that sign and they came to us. They knock on the door and saying, we are not Jewish, but we saw your sign at our hotel. Can we join you for the Passover? So that's how difficult, that we had that time. So even though it's a small community, so we're trying to do what we could do. And so I was living, as I mentioned, most of the time. I share you the one story. In 2011, I came back here to Burma for my winter vacation, and I told my father, Dad, let's do the Hanukkah, the Hanukkah lighting festival. Let's do the Hanukkah festival and invite people, and we would do at the hotel. And he looked at me. He said, Sammy, are you crazy? Who would come for the Hanukkah event? We have a very small, tiny Jewish community, and Hanukkah event, who would know about that and who would come? So I said, I told my dad, let's do it. Let's try to invite the people from the diplomatic community, friends of the community, and maybe some government official. And amazingly, we have 150 people show up. Even the Minister of Religious Affairs light the candle. We have the diplomatic community. And since then, we have been trying to do the Hanukkah every year in different places. So one example that I would give is, even though it's a small community, we're trying to do what we could do.
And your business that you've developed and which was going well until, of course, the events of last year, what did you do?
So in 2006, I started a travel agency called Shalom Travel. And it was the reason also because a lot of tourists coming to the synagogue and they asking to my father, where should I eat? Where should I stay? Where should I do? And he's been helping a lot of other, the tourists. And he had a great connection with all the great tour guides in Myanmar. So then I got an idea in 2000. So why don't we do the travel agency so we can officially help them and make a living as well? So at that time, in 2006, it's very difficult for Myanmar. Not many people want to come and visit. But then we started it. So we started it very small. It's only 2 people. I was living in New York, and my sister and one staff was helping in Rangoon. So slowly we started, and then in 2007 we had the Saffron Revolution. So it's up and down. But then in 2012, then everything started changing. It was booming. The political changes because of that, and then many affluent tourists wanted to come. So from the 2 people company in that time till 2011, it started changing. We slowly have more and more, and we have about 40 people working for us that time in 2012. And the tourism was booming till recently, as we all know, the COVID hit in 2020. And so hopefully we are waiting, and we are positive hope the tourism will come back after the situation.
And where do a lot of the tourists, are they Jewish tourists or are they just general tourists?
General tourists, but our main market is the US and the European country. That's a main market. Also, we do some other Asian country and as well. So majorities are the American, but not particularly Jewish. But I would say about 40%. It's because by looking at the name, Shalom Travel, so they contact us and through other friends and recommendations as well.
So you've had some famous Israeli Jewish figures visit the synagogue, right? You've had Moshe Dayan.
Right. We had Moshe Dayan. I mean, as Burma and Israel also used to be a great relationship because Burma was the first country ever to recognize Israel at the UN. And not many people know, after Israel got independent, it was not a big country that visited. The Burmese Prime Minister Unu was the first ever Prime Minister to visit Israel after Israel got independent. It was not United States, UK, or any other big country. It was Unu. So that's why many Israeli people, love it because after Israel got independent, it was him. And not only that, David Ben Gurion, make a historical trip to Burma because he stayed during his prime minister. He came to Burma, and it was his longest trip ever in the history. He stayed 16 days in Rangoon.
Wow.
And that was his longest trip. And he got a great connection with Prime Minister Unu. So professionally and personally. So Unu requests him to do meditation. And not many people know. So Ben Gurion did the meditation at the Mahasi for 3 days together with Unu. Unu asked for longer, and then David Ben Gurion said, "I'm a prime minister, a lot of work, so I'll do 3 days." So they did together 3 days at the Mahasi Center in Rangoon. So this really showed the 2 country relationship and the connection. It was a wonderful time.
Sammy, you know that I actually became a monk at Mahasi. I was ordained there,
Oh, okay.
so I know
Very
Mahasi
interesting.
well.
Very interesting. Yes, Maharaji.
So you say now is it really less than a dozen Jewish
Yes.
people really living
Yes.
in?
But we have also the expat community.
Yeah,
Since 2012, the expat community has been growing growing around 60, 70, sometime to till 100. But then the political situation and the COVID situation have made them to leave the country.
right.
So it's been reduced now.
So since it's so small, tell me, how do you keep the synagogue going? Who owns it and how's it maintained?
So as the community is small, then all these expenses are supported by the Shalom Travel, the travel agency. So there are so many the agency, Jewish agency in the United States and other country, and some of them also ask, do we need any funding and etc. And this is a very small community, and the synagogue is well maintained. So we didn't request for any funding. So it's as of now, it's coming from the travel agency, plus people who visit the synagogue make a contribution. So it's surviving through these two travel agency and donations from
Wow.
the visitors as well.
Yeah, but that's not easy to do, I'm sure. I mean, I hear
Right, we are trying.
yeah,
Trying.
it's certainly meant to be a very beautiful building.
It is, and also, Peter, you'll be amazed because it ranked number 3 on the TripAdvisor out of the 154 attraction in Rangoon. And the first one is obviously everybody know the Shwedagon Pagoda,
Redagon.
of course, and Shwedagon. And second is the Utan Museum, the museum of the Utan.
Yeah.
And the third is a synagogue. So it's very interesting to see the Jewish temple. And the reason is because I would say, it's called credit go to my father. Because in any other country, even in Singapore or other country, if you want to visit the synagogue, you have a lot of security check through and ask questions. So in Rangoon, my father, any visitor who come, my father never asks a question. Are you Jewish or are you not Jewish? Why you want to see? So he welcomed everyone for years, and he explained to them a brief history. So he told me, if they came here and they understand a little bit about the history, that's plus for us. So because of that, people came to visit, and there is no obligation to make any contribution. So tourists come and visit, and they write a review on the TripAdvisor. So based on that, it's been number 3. That's amazing.
And do you have a rabbi?
We don't have the rabbi. We have visiting rabbi from when we have a holiday. So we bring mainly from the U.S.
From the US. And again,
From US.
there's no international Jewish trust or something like that. You have to bear all those costs.
Yes, so it's only for the high holiday that we bring, like a Jewish New Year,
Yeah.
and the Yom Kippur. So that's also a trip was covered from us, from the
Right.
agency as well.
So what do you normally do on the Sabbath? What do you do with the synagogue?
So Shabbat is usually, it's because of this small community. I mean, when without the COVID, without this political situation, where the synagogue is always open on Friday. So, sometimes tourists come and we light the candle and we pray. So mainly it's now for the high holiday is the one that we usually get together. And one of the highlights is, as I mentioned, every year that's became a symbol of the Jewish community. It's a Hanukkah. And that before the COVID, we had the wonderful Hanukkah event with 250 people at the synagogue. So every year we change the place. 1 year at the synagogue, 1 year at this hotel, that hotel. So in 2019, we did at the synagogue. It was 250 people show up. It was a wonderful event.
And has there been much intermarriage, or have the Jewish people tended to marry Jewish people?
Yeah, the community is so small, so there is. And then majorities, the community left to US, and when I say, even though it's a community, it's very small here, but when I talk about community, I talk as a whole, as a diaspora community, because we have about 3,000 or more people that we have connection, mainly in the US, and some also we have a family member in the Australia, and then also in the UK as well. So this is like a broader one. And there is a synagogue in US, a majorities of the Jews came from Burma.
Right.
In there.
So these are people who once lived in Rangoon.
Once lived in Rangoon, and then they move to the I mentioned 4 different countries: US, Israel, Australia, and then UK.
Has there been any discrimination against being Jewish in Myanmar?
Well, not at all. Not at all. We live peacefully side by side with all the community, and there has never been any issue whatsoever. Whatever happened in other countries, the outside doesn't really affect. My father told me once, only that happened is in long time ago in '67. When the war happened in Israel. That's the only one that we have some demonstration outside the synagogue. Since then, that's not at all. And then also the Burmese people, they love Israel. The Burmese people love Israel.
Right. But one thing we were talking just before we started formally the interview, in many countries, there's a requirement for people to adopt the national language in their names. And I think you're saying that's similar in Myanmar. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And so when I grew up, I went to the public school here in Yangon. So we have to have on the ID and everything, we have to have a Burmese name. So even that when we were growing up, it was not allowed to have like a Michael or David or something, So I have my Burmese name. So I was known by Sammy from many, but my school's name and my official name is called Aung Soe Lwin.
Aung Soe Lwin.
That's my Aung Soe Lwin. That's my Burmese name on the ID and then passport as well.
Right. And what do you see the future now for you in terms of staying there? You're committed? You've just opened a restaurant, I believe.
Yes. It's a Mediterranean restaurant, so Israeli, Lebanese, all these kind of Middle Eastern Mediterranean food. We don't have it in Rangoon, so it's been going well. And
what have you noticed in terms of, you mentioned expats leaving and so on? Is there still a solid number of expats living in Rangoon or in Yangon at the moment?
Many have left. I would say many that we know, and many expat and repack also people who came back.
Yes.
There are some of my friends, it's also very, very important. Beside expat, there's a repack.
Yes.
It's some of my friends, we came together in 2015 and we came with the high hope that we would try to change in the business system and then making a better one. And we did. We had a great 5 years, and a lot of the good things happened. But now, even within my friend networking, many have left. They went back to US. They went back to Singapore. They went back to UK and other countries as well. So it's been a very difficult. So what we are trying to do, it's also wait and see time, because in 2020 will be the wait and see time. So 2023 will be critical, because if there is not much changes by the time of the 2023, it would be difficult for the country and for each families as well.
Absolutely. Well, Sammy, look, thank you so much for your time. I think it's been very important to hear about the presence of the Jews in Myanmar. And they've certainly made a mark in the country. And let's hope you can continue on the tradition that your grandfather and father did in maintaining the synagogue. And I wish you all the best with Shalom travel and that 2023 does have some green shoots for you. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me, Peter. Thank you.